Just say good evening, everybody. Thanks so much for joining us tonight. I'm Veronica Reynolds, Head of Community Relations at New City Library, and I'm so happy to welcome back Natasha Nurse, who has an amazing background that I'm sure she'll probably get into, so I don't want to steal her thunder. I know she usually has an introductory slide, but Natasha's been coming to our library both first in person and now on Zoom for many years, and I'm so happy to have you back to talk about using failure as a teaching tool tonight.
Yes, thank you so much. I'm so excited to be here as well. And we will get right into everything. So, with that, I think we're good to go. Yeah, failure. Something that is challenging personally, professionally, somewhere in between, because who wants to fail? Who wants to initiate anything in their life, personally or professionally, and not have it be a home run or have it feel like it was successful? But the lessons and the learnings that come from the fumbles and the falls is really quintessential for human growth, for our growth in our careers, for us to grow as people. It's a requirement. So really excited to get into this and hope that there are tons of comments and questions thereafter, because this is a topic that we're going to have to keep revisiting just throughout different stages of our lives. All right, so let me go here. Okay, there we go. So yes, here we go. First, like when we think about failure, what are the automatic or the like easy grab kind of wins that we can get from this? Well, we are make sure so you can see that. I think the first is resilience. I think most people can get behind the idea of saying, well, if I fumble, if I fall, right? You can think of it from even a parent-child relationship, that like the child is learning to ride a bike. Woo, it's fun, and then it's not so fun when they fall off that bike, right? Because what do we have? We probably have some cuts, we have some bruised ego, we also have like I didn't want that to happen. So a little bit of shock, a little bit of change, wasn't expecting it, big feelings, depending upon where your kid sits in the journey of life. Mine has big feelings for everything. So that's where my mind goes. and we're going to have built resilience, right? Because the next time that child gets on the bike, they may anticipate the opportunity or the space of falling. So maybe they might pay more attention to how they're handling the bike. And you can then replace that child in that analogy or that scenario and put yourself in it. The first time you experience quote unquote failure or challenge, what's going to happen the next time? You're going to have less shock. You're going to have less feelings, big feelings. You're going to also have the opportunity to say, hey, I did that, right? And this is what happened that scenario. So what can I do in this scenario? And take it from there. So resilience, I think we can kind of wrap our mind around that. And that is something that is like, that makes you more like Teflon. We need as much resilience in life because there's a lot of changes that we deal with in life. So the more that we can feel more confident and more comfortable with change through the power of resilience, it's win-win. Next, we're going to get more creative and we're going to get more innovative, right? So similarly, let's put our mind back in that scenario of the child and the bike. If we fell because we swayed a little bit more to the left or a little bit too much to the right, what are we going to do? We're going to think about how we can stay more balanced. Or, ooh, I'm on this surface and now the surface levels are changing. What can I do to make sure that I can navigate through the shifting of that? Right? So you're going to start to think through and problem solve what is ahead of you, but also how can we do this in a way that makes sense for you, whatever the scenario is. And that piece is the innovation. The creativity comes to play based on essentially how much strategy you put behind the things, and that it then gets played out to the problem solving. So yes, failure is hard. Yes, it's a form of change, but as we talk through these things, resilience, being more creative, having more innovation, being able to problem solve, does that sound like a bad thing? No, quite opposite, right? That sounds phenomenal. That sounds like, oh, those sound like life learning skills. Yes, 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 yes. And that is why failure is not so bad. It is an opportunity for us to grow. And then Another benefit, in addition to all of those, right? If you're like, ooh, door number 1, door number 2, door number 3, door number 4, self-awareness. And, as a person who coaches, as a person who mentors, leads, and, that's just my narrative. I imagine for everyone watching this, there's all the different hats that you are wearing in your life, right? That's what is the complexity of the human experience, is that we don't just do one thing, we're doing all the things all the time. Fun. So to do all the things that we need to do in life, what also do we need to do? We have to continuously be more self-aware of who we are and how we approach things, what things trigger us, like what are the things that you're doing that makes you kind of more uncomfortable, but also opposite, makes you really excited and makes you really amped up to pursue that. The more that you live through your lived experience of life, like the only way through it is through it, then you start to, on the back end, start to have those self-reflections, to have self-awareness, to then also better inform the types of decisions you make, the types of problems that you will accept and welcome, and then also for the ones that we have no control over, how do we get through that? Again, good stuff here. So this will be a question for you to think through right now. Spill the tea. What is something that you would consider an epic fail or failure that you were able to turn into a win for yourself? And then how did that experience help you level up your game in your parenting, as in your career, in a personal relationship, a family squabble that we dealt with, right? There's so many different arenas within our life where being able to tackle failure successfully, and again, it may not happen the first time, right? You may deal with a challenge and maybe you didn't learn that all the lessons that needed to be learned from that. Okay, life has a funny way of making you revisit and say, oh, okay, no, they didn't get it. Okay, let's do it again. And and then there you are again, and you're, oh, okay. And so how are we learning what we need to learn to be able to improve ourselves and take things to the next level? Because that's what we want to do. We don't want to keep living and reliving the same experiences, especially if these experiences tend to be more challenging or tend to be more frustrating than not. Then let's get what we need to get out of this and move past this. And then you might say, well, what's next? Something wonderful, but guess what? There's also another challenge behind another door. So it doesn't end. It's transforming into something different. But that's the fun part. All right. So when we think about it, for failure specifically, I like to break out personal versus professional, just because depending upon where you are in your life, if you're watching this and you're like, hey, Tosh, I'm 15, and you're like, well, I don't have a job. That's okay, because you still have failure. But then you could be in a different scenario in your life, and you're watching this, and you're okay, yeah, I need this for my job. Okay, yeah. So wherever you sit, age-wise, country-wise, any stage, any season of life, this is something that's going to apply to you. This is not specific to a specific group of people. This is the human experience. So yay for that. That's a unifying thing that we can think about. First and foremost, based on the things that I was saying earlier, all of that could be summed up within, right, the opportunity to level up, because we're not just going to go through the challenge and the obstacle again and just, oh, that happened. No, like you need to go from A to then B. And if we're not understanding how to get to A to B, then again, life will have its thing and life will life and do its thing. And then you will figure out, how could we transform? How could we approach it with a different mindset? How could we be more resilient and kind of face it head on and not necessarily procrastinate or try to push it off to the side? How can we also look at these challenges and see not just the challenge, but what is the opportunity to grow from it? So in life, right, your life is a representation of what's in your mind. So a lot of times as humans, most of us are more influenced by negativity than positivity, which then means that when we view things, we usually view things from the perspective of how something's going to fail, how something's not going to work, how something's problematic. That's just like a very easy space for our minds to go through. It takes actual work to unlearn that process and to just look at something and see it for what it is, and then to make the conscious choice to say, okay, well, I see this as an opportunity to ... And then, of course, you should always be cognizant and aware of the challenges presented with whatever X is. But we don't have to jump there first. We can jump to that. And that's what like having a growth mindset is about. It's about seeing the opportunity for the win, for the learnings, for the lessons within the context of whatever else comes with it. Not everything comes with a challenge. Some do, and most do, but not everything. And so just being able to kind of shift and not go to the left and go to the right a little bit for things. And then also another thing that may not have necessarily come to your mind, but empathy. And you're going to have more empathy for people who struggle when you struggle. And you know, I'll share a personal story. When I was 14 years, I lived my whole life in Manhattan. I grew up in New York. So yes to New York, woohoo! And I grew up in Stuyvesant Town, which is a part of the city, which is very magical and very sweet. And if you've never been, please go visit. But at 14, my parents divorced, and it was a really problematic time period in my life. And to the point where like, I guess one could consider me homeless in my life at that point, and had to like kind of go and stay with family members to kind of figure that out until I was able to then get to college. And so super traumatic, woo, a lot going on there. But I had always, I say this to say that I had empathy for those who are homeless. I grew up, I think I've always, whenever I think of New York, even as a child, I definitely remember seeing homeless people, seeing people who were challenged with a variety of mental health issues, drugs, substance abuse issues, right? Like those were things that I witnessed in the city. But to be honest, like I didn't feel the pain as much as when I didn't necessarily know where I could stay, or when I didn't have heat or lights or food to eat. Like things like that become a lot more realer, and it touches home a lot more when you are going through that. And it's a shame really that human beings simply can't just like mentally get to that space without having to experience it. But when they say life is a lived experience, they mean it. They absolutely mean it. And I will tell you, I concur 1,000%. Until you do not know what it is to suffer in the same way that you're witnessing it, you won't have the compassion. Not to that degree, right? Because you'll know what it is to be hungry. You'll know what it is to not have X, Y, Z, right? And then when you witness that, ooh, your heart just kind of drops, and you just really feel connected to that person and that suffering in a whole new way. And so when we struggle, right, you absolutely will have compassion and empathy, and it will change how you communicate about it. It will change how you speak to the person or people about things. It will also possibly change the types of hobbies or passions you pursue in light of the challenges you face in your own life. So it can really, I mean, that transformative experience, like it can really transform your life. I mean, there's some people who say they go through certain experiences and it totally changes the trajectory of where they're going in life, where they live, the type of things they like to do, the type of people they associate with. Like it can really shift like 180, 360, the full thing for you. So just think about that. And then storytelling. It's a lot easier to have narratives and stories to tell when you've lived a life that is quite colorful. And for those from New York, we know that New York is a quite colorful place. So it is, I think a lot of New Yorkers are kind of probably known for our ability to have kind of very interesting stories to tell, and a very much of it is tied to the struggles, to the challenges, to the opportunities that came our way, whether we wanted those opportunities or not, whether we felt like those were opportunities that were easy to bear or not. They happened, it occurred, you got through it, you're here today. Tell the story. Build empathy with others. Learn to help other people learn how to live life differently through the lessons you learned, right? Like it can really build community. It can build a connection point with people in a whole new way. So again, what are we doing? We're taking this opportunity to look at failure and say, wait, maybe it's not so bad. Maybe it's actually one of the best parts of life. I know that is a wild statement to say. I know you're like, wait a minute, Natasha, wait a minute. Just think about it. We're not done. We're not done. So I think you may come around. So now we've done like that personal conversation. Let's get into the professional a little bit. So confidence. Isn't it a lot more easier to be more confident when you approach things when you are a person who has fumbled and fallen and gotten up, and maybe you did it 7, 8, 15 times, right? It's a lot easier to stand up and dust yourself off and really make sure that you're able to come to the situation, the next opportunity in front of you, with a lot more lessons and a lot more information, a lot more wisdom to the table. That's confidence. I like to talk about confidence as like a muscle. The same way if you were to say you wanted to work out or you wanted to build stamina, are we building our confidence? And if you say, well, no, not really. Well, what are we doing to fail? What are we doing to struggle? That's one of the best ways to build that confidence muscle. Next is time management maestro, or being able to just master time management. Why? For those watching this and listening to this, if you are a parent, you all too well know the power of time management, project management. You have to be a human octopus. You have to have 8 arms and 8 legs and be doing everything at once. It's an interesting experience. And why? Because you realize, oh, they need this. And so my son is currently a toddler, so I'm very much in that trauma. I call it trauma because it is. I'm joking. They're beautiful. They're wonderful. It's a lot, though. But yeah, again, the child needs something. Oh, that's easy. No, you also need something. Oh, wait, and you're doing your job. Oh, wait, and there's a family crisis over here. Oh, wait, and the house needs this. And oh, wait, I need to do this for the car. And oh, what's for dinner? And oh, gosh, I didn't pick up the dry cleaning. Yep, all of that. All of that and so much more, right? How do we do it? What are the tools? What are the skills? So when we start to miss deadlines, when we start to miss doing what we said we were going to do, you then either keep at that flow and you just kind of keep that, I guess, struggle of life going, or you take a step back and you say, okay, wait a minute. I can make some changes here. I can calendar block. For the first 15 minutes of the day, I'm gonna When baby or kid is up and I get out of the house, I'm gonna do, right? Like you can start to create that routine for yourself so that the struggle that is becomes a lot less of a struggle. And you do feel like life is more like a symphony and you are orchestrating the most beautiful symphony you've ever heard in your life. But until we have those opportunities of, oh, missed that appointment. Oh my gosh, I can't believe I couldn't get this. Oh no, I missed it. Until those things happen, you don't have that wake up call to say, oh, I got to do things a little bit different. Okay. Collaboration, especially within the workplace. How many times have we in our jobs, regardless of your title, right? A lot of times we are doing what? We try to take on everything when we say we have to do a task. And sometimes that can be what? That can be really hard because you can't do everything, not at all at once. You can do a lot, but not all at once. So what I have tried to utilize in my career, and I recommend for you to do the same for yours, is to look at deliverables, look at deadlines that you have, create milestones, and then look and figure out how can we be cross-functional about this. Do you have to build this, or could this person who's maybe junior in your career start to learn a little bit more about project management? So you're going to task them with this. And then, oh, this other person's really good at social engagement. And this is a campaign that is going to go out externally. So I'm going to do a 30-minute sync with them and brainstorm and figure out what pieces, ideas they have to do to the table. Because do I need to come up with all the ideas? No, you don't. No, you don't. The point is you don't have to do everything, especially when if you are fortunate enough to have some cross-functionality within your workplace, utilize it. And the only person standing in the way of that is you, literally. So and the worst thing that could happen, I do want to put this out there, because just because you ask doesn't mean someone has to say yes. There's something called boundaries. That could be a whole other talk. So, there. But, the worst thing they say is no. Okay. All right, it's okay. It doesn't mean it's no forever unless they state that. It's no for now. Maybe that's an opportunity to work with someone else. Maybe, but don't ever let like the no's stand in the way of you being like, oh, well, I tried this and that person said no. Okay. The sun didn't like explode. It's okay. We keep it moving. Keep it moving. So I put that out there just in case that happens. I don't want that to be an excuse of like, why didn't we do this? Or, none of that. So when you are dealing with your life, it's not just the doing, right? But it's also the communication. Where do people, especially within the workplace, have the most difficult challenge? communicating, either lack of it, not talking to what needs to be spoken about, not talking in a manner that's inclusive, not speaking in a manner that first we've like kind of leverage that empathy guessing and try to understand not just what I need to say to X person, but also how I need to approach the situation given how they receive feedback, how they appreciate being spoken to, right? Like all of those considerations, then what are you going to have? You're going to have conflict. So what would you prefer? Would you prefer to have a conversation and engagement that officially kind of gets the thing done? Or do you want to just like go rogue and just like do what you want to do because that's, you know, you got to do you, regardless of who you're speaking to or how it's received? So I think the more inclusive approach is more helpful because you're more likely to reduce the amount of meetings you have, more likely to actually get what you want done, and then build more tethering to your team. Because when we work with coworkers, right, we spend more time with them than we do with our families a lot of time. So shouldn't this be an enjoyable experience? Shouldn't this be something you actually look forward to, something that you don't could take a deep breath and say, oh, I wish I could be somewhere else? No, like that's not fun. That's definitely not fun, whether you're doing that for 6 months, 6 years, or anything longer or in between. Like, let's try to make this the best experience for ourselves. And I mentioned the collaboration that also speaks to delegation. And that will be, you know, nuanced based on the work environment you have. Sometimes that's something you have to run directly through someone's manager that then gets delegated to their direct reports. Sometimes you can just go directly to the person you're speaking to. So you want to follow the mechanisms that work best in your organizational culture. And if there aren't standards, if there aren't practices in place, then this is a great opportunity to say, well, you know, I watched this thing, Miss Natasha done told me, right? Like, go ahead, you can quote me. Like, you can go ahead and do what you need to get done, right? Because we're stressing ourselves out and we're building levels of anxiety and feeling like I can't do this, all because we're not pulling apart the complexities that don't need to exist here. We don't have to carry all the weight on our back. We don't have to do everything by ourselves. We can take the opportunity to say, wait, I would rather people delay the campaign, delay the project, delay whatever the deliverable is, and really take a step back if it takes some time to say, well, we have to relook at the process. Oh, there is no process, or this process hasn't worked, or this isn't working for this current team. Okay. Pause, reshuffle, figure out how to move in a way that works for the people involved, who are the stakeholders, who are the improvers, who are the doers, who are the consultants, right? Like, who are all the people that are involved in this scenario? What are they doing? What are the expectations? What are the deadlines? What are the milestones? Get the clarity, get whatever the pushback is, finalize the plan, and then move forward. Right. And guess what? Even when we do all the things, you said, Natasha, I did all the things, and still things don't go well. That's life. That is the beauty of lifing. And there's going to be a lesson. There's got to be a lesson learned. I literally have experienced this in my current life. So I'm speaking from experience of like, yep, it is not a comfortable feeling. It is not enjoyable at all. But the lessons learned. I'll take them. I'll take them every time. And I hope you do too. And then, of course, the ability to utilize technology, to utilize resources. So I'm not sure how many watching and listening to this are aware of all the tools that are happening within, say, the AI space, or even project management tools or social media planning tools. Like, depending upon what your function is, what you need to achieve, there's a tool out there for you. I would be shocked. Like, you would need to come on here and give me a comment and tell me, Natasha, I've looked, there's nothing. Really? Because I mean, I'm finding new tools every day for multiple things that I do, and I'm not overwhelmed. I'm really like, my mind is exploding of joy and excitement, because that like really gets my goose. It doesn't for everyone, but totally. Like, I'm like, yeah, let's do this. There's a tool out there to help you. And so like I said, depending upon what you need to accomplish, definitely check out the tools. And you can literally just write what you're looking for in Google, and it will respond to you. And hello, the library has books, has processes, has books on project management, has book on time management. Like, there are the resources available to you to figure out how to make this work for you and your team and beyond. So that was a lot, I know, but a lot of good stuff. Also, I wanted to talk about, well, Natasha, okay, I hear you. There's personal benefit, there's professional benefit. Okay, I'm kind of flowing with you. Okay, stay with me. how do we actually do it, right? Like, how do we actually learn from the failures themselves? So first step, and I think in steps, like this is how my mind thinks. So I'm going to present it in this form. If you need to like reimagine this and revisualize this in how your mind works, totally do that. But I think in like steps. It's just like how I follow things in my mind. I feel like it's simple. It's how I speak to my son. And look, first we do, and I feel like it works. It works. But tell me if it doesn't work, and we can talk about it in a different way that makes sense for you. But first step is first just acknowledging and accepting that we had such failure, right? The big F word. And I know that it may not be comfortable to even say that. I will tell you, culturally, as a person growing up as a Black woman, two different demographics that, potentially can be challenged with failure. Black in that, historically in this country, it has been challenging to feel like you can fail publicly or privately without it being game over, to be honest, right? Like it being like, oh, I can no longer do this. Oh, this is dead to me. This is no longer available. That's not necessarily always the truth or the narrative, but that's what it feels like. It feels like a lot of pressure within just a cultural context of like, I have to do this and it has to be perfect. It's rough. It's not healthy. It's not helpful because it's not, you're not going to win all the time. You're just not. And then as a woman, so many expectations, so many, I think, burdens put upon the genders around, and specifically for women, of like what a woman should do. What does success, or what does showing up in this specific context look like from the gender perspective? So it's challenging from both fronts, I'll just say. And those are just two things I've named for my own narrative. I would encourage you to listen and then start to ask yourself, what are the ways that you feel that you've been challenged from failure within the boxes that you orient within? It gets interesting. It gets very interesting. But nonetheless, it doesn't mean it holds us back. It doesn't mean that you can just say, oh, well, it is what it is. No. Face it, conquer through it, and let's acknowledge and let's accept. And then, okay, it was a failure. Let's look at the situation. What was the failure itself? Objectively, what was the data point that you defined this to be the failure? You needed to have something be mailed. It wasn't mailed. You needed for this project to hit, X amount of people on social media. It did not hit that. Like I was supposed to secure this client and I didn't, right? Like, what is the specific point that would be distinguished as the failure here? And then what was your role in this? What was the role of the other people you're working in with this? And then what were circumstances that were out of your hands? Maybe it's not necessarily a person, but maybe it's a system, maybe it's a, fill in the blank. Dissect, go in, right? And is this something you need to do like in 5 minutes? Absolutely not. Sometimes we need to process with something for a week, right? Sometimes it's a day, sometimes it's 2 weeks. Like the cadence is going to be self-generated. I always like to use the term dealer's choice, just to have a little levity for the scenario, but dealer's choice on this. I would recommend, if you want my recommendation, to try to accomplish this within a shorter time frame so that you don't get into the space of like rumination, where it's like you're just thinking about it, and we aren't getting to the space of actioning something, right? So I would recommend we try to condense the time for this dissection of the situation within a day, within a week. Like try to get it down to something that works for your timeline. And then we can then have some self-reflections around this. If this is something that would maybe require journaling, let's journal. You can do it on paper, you can do it on the computer, on your phone, like whatever works for you. And then I would recommend for step 4, get some feedback, especially if this involved a situation where you're working with someone else, like in a work context. If you're a team of 4, what were the perspectives of the other 3 people, right? And maybe, your initial thought to that might be like, Natasha, well, they're just going to tell me like I'm their boss, so they're not going to really be honest with me. So that offers an opportunity to then say, okay, so we need to work on our culture of feedback, right? And we need to get to a space where you can trust what's being said to you. And then thus those who need to share can trust that they can share without any kind of consequence of such share. But nonetheless, we've got to start somewhere. So If that's where you're at, again, let's sit there and let's work through this, but try to get feedback. Let's get constructive feedback, not just, what worked well. That's phenomenal. That's always good to hear. And especially when you're giving feedback, I definitely always recommend a feedback sandwich, meaning we start with what worked. Yay. What were the opportunities for growth? Okay. And then let's end in positive of what are we excited to do next? What are we going to research? What are we going to uncover? What are we going to read? Right? There's an opportunity to be positive, constructive, positive, feedback sandwich. And then this is my favorite part, step 5, which is doing something with this information. I like to share sometimes on social media, like knowledge is power. And one of my favorite things that happened is, without a doubt, someone comes for me, as I like to say, and they say, applied knowledge is everything. And I said, touche, touche. Facts, 1,000% facts. Knowledge is phenomenal. Yes, hello. Please, libraries, books, everything, give the knowledge all the time. But if we don't do anything with this knowledge, how is it improving our life? Right, that's the question. And you know the answer. The answer is it's not. So to actually have knowledge, have application within the context of failure, we need to do all the steps that we talked about before, and then get to that space of actioning something. So for instance, we can go to say, let's go to the scenario of you did a presentation, you're pitching your business to offer a service, and then that pitch, you thought, or your goal, objective, was to achieve a yes handshake. I'm interested in wanting to move forward. Let's drop contracts, right? Like, let's secure business for your business. Okay, do the pitch. Maybe the pitch doesn't go smoothly. Maybe we have technological issues. Maybe the materials provided don't match what you are presenting. Maybe there's just like a flow of opportunity for growth here. Ouch, right? Painful, painful, painful. Yes, we didn't get that deal. That's disappointing. That's frustrating. But what would be the improvement going forward? What are the steps from a project management perspective that we need to put into place to make sure that when we have that next pitch, that we set enough time to prepare the pitch materials, the pitch deck, that we have set enough time to have review of such pitch deck. And it's not just self-review, because we can't catch everything by ourselves. We need to utilize resources, whether it's a person or a tool. Utilize resources and then have our materials reviewed, and then maybe even have a time for second, third, fourth, fifth review, whatever works for you and what you're doing. And then how are we practicing the pitch to make sure that when we do it, no technical or minimized technical issues, and that it is flowing the way you want it to flow. We are hitting the milestone that you want to hit here. And then possibly, maybe the next time we do this, you do get the deal, or you at least get closer to getting the deal, right? But the point of this is to say that just because we failed doesn't mean that the next time we do that, we automatically are going to fail, or that we're going to have the same failures, because you could absolutely correct X failure and then have a new failure, right? And that's just the nature of life. That's the nature of just existing, but we can improve. But the only way to improve is to build out that improvement plan. All right. And then we're going to move forward with that word I mentioned before, resilience. We are Teflon. We are building that muscle of saying, I can do this. I can make this be different. I can make this be more helpful. I can make this be meaningful. I can make this an opportunity to learn in the right ways, in the ways that I want to learn, and even in the ways that I didn't think I needed to learn is going to happen. So it's good stuff here, right? You're like, maybe, I don't know. We'll see. So let's go through some examples of popular examples that we've seen in life. Okay, so J.K. Rowling, from the creator of the Harry Potter world and universe, right? How many of us knew their story, right? Her story of all the rejections received for publishing her first book. Not a fun space to be in. You develop this world, this space, this baby essentially of yours. It's like the most precious thing you've done. And especially in her case, where she's trying to provide for her son, and it's just a lot going on with life, and that you feel all the pressure. It can't be good to have 1 and 2 and 5 and 10 and 20, right? Different publishers say, nah, I'm not feeling this. Painful. Do you give up? No, you never give up. That's the point. You never give up. Even if you have to shift in the pitch, even if you have to shift who you're pitching to, you don't give up. You have to stay completely committed to your dream, completely committed to your goal, and move forward. But the point is, every rejection, every quote unquote failure, we see that as what is the opportunity. So maybe in our pitch letter, there were typos. Maybe our pitch letter went to a totally wrong agent that had no power, had no opportunity to be able to have the conversation that we needed to have. Figure out what are the things that we can change along the way and keep moving forward. Henry Ford, before the successful Ford Motor Company, had not one, not two, not three. He was left broke 5 times before having Ford be successful. Imagine how powerful that is. I mean, that's not easy, right? To try to build a business or try to move forward with a dream and like literally become like lose financing and maybe even get to the point of destitution. Like that's not an easy place to be in. Determination, resilience, right? Like that's what's reading there. Next, Albert Einstein, right? One of the greatest minds that have ever lived on the planet. Teachers thought wouldn't amount to much. Isn't that something, right? So for us parents watching this, listening to this, how many of us, if we're having children that are maybe struggling under traditional teaching methods, it's super easy for someone to just come to you and be like, oh yeah, they can't do this. They're not capable. They're just not good enough. Or your program isn't matching what my child needs. We are not saying my child's not good enough. We are not saying my child can't do this. They may have to do something different, right? But it doesn't mean that they are less valuable, that they're less meaningful, that what they're doing is somehow not as desired. No. Any space that is providing or kind of fostering that type of language, that is not the space you need to be in. And you need to still believe in that person, your child, you, yourself, figure out, whoever's at issue here or dealing with the issue and move forward and figure it out and not give up. Because imagine that being kind of revered as like one of the most, if not brilliant minds on the planet, and people saying, oh, they can't do nothing. Fascinating stuff there. Vincent van Gogh, only sold 1 painting in his lifetime. Isn't that something? Isn't that something? Right. And that is common of artists, especially back in the day. I'm so happy now to see how artists are able to like really monetize and create more kind of income streams and opportunity and lifestyle for themselves with their art. It's really, I find it inspiring personally, but like for artists back in the day, like how incredible to struggle to that degree and not be able to have your art be cherished and appreciated in your lifetime. It's a shame that that's where that sat for him, but thank God he kept going. Thank God that we do have his art. And imagine what he would say today if he could see how much his art is valued. Imagine. Michael Jordan. Hello. Right, one of the most revered basketball player of our times, cut from his high school basketball team. Isn't that something? Where you're told you're not even welcome to play the sport, that he now has dominated, that he has now created a legacy. I don't know if anyone will be able to top it. I mean, we'll see, right? We will see. But isn't that something? For me, I find that to just be like, wow, like, even when you really think it's the end of the road, nope, not even close, not even close. And then even Winston Churchill struggled severely with being able to have the ability to speak in a way where people wouldn't necessarily attack it or see it as not what the standard of speech performance should be. Became known for being able to give powerful speeches and inspire Britain. I mean, incredible stuff here. So, and these are just like 6 examples. There are millions of examples. Hello, you yourself watching this, listening to this, are an example of, I know you can. We can all look at a time in our life where someone told us we can't do that. And guess what you did? Right. And isn't that something? And so it's just testimony really of saying there's not an end of the road. There's not an end to this. It's just the beginning. It's just the beginning. And so I wanted to share some additional quotes as well. And then we can see if there are some other percolating questions. I can share some just other words as well to help you think through this, but really hope that this is going to help you get to the space every time you deal with a challenge, a quote unquote failure. And I say quote unquote because it isn't. I mean, at the end of this, I really hope that you've thought through the word and said, oh yeah, it's actually not. It's quite remarkable. And it's an opportunity. It's not a failure, it's an opportunity. So Thomas Edison said, I have not failed, I've just found 10,000 ways that won't work. Have you ever done something 10,000 times? Most people wouldn't, right? Most people would give up 10, 100, maybe 200, maybe 300. 10,000 times to try to figure out how to do the light bulb, right? Like, whoa. Never give up, ever. Nelson Mandela, do not judge me by my successes. Judge me by how many times I fell down and got back up again. Why? Because it is easy to let life defeat you. It is easy to lay down and surrender. It is the easiest thing to do. It is much harder to get up and pick yourself up and say, I will not be defeated. I will find a way. Where there's a will, there's a way, all the time. And even if it means reimagining the goal, even if it means reimagining how you do something, doesn't mean it's the end. But you have to believe in yourself enough. And I always like to, especially in coaching, I always love to share with people, like, you cannot expect anything from other people that you refuse to do for yourself. So if you want someone to believe in you, you've got to believe in you. If you want other people to work hard or work smart or work strategically, you've got to do the same. You can't, it doesn't work that way. You can't be like, y'all go ahead and do this, and I'm just going to sit and do what I do. And no, it doesn't work that way. It is an equal exchange. And my coveted, I love her, Maya Angelou, my greatest life inspiration. You may encounter many defeats, but you must not be defeated. In fact, it may be necessary to encounter the defeats so you can know who you are, what you can rise from, how you can still come out of it. From this, I share that I think that you really start to learn who you are in this world when you really struggle. I know that sounds a little scary, and it is. It definitely is, because you don't want to envision a life where you're saying, wow, like, so the best of me is really going to happen when I'm like literally on fire. Unfortunately, that sometimes is the case. And I will tell you, like, and that's something I struggle with for as a parent, because the natural instinct, especially when you think about parent-child relationships, and especially when your child is like in the more younger years, and you're like, oh, you're just trying to protect this beautiful, sweet baby of yours. I constantly have to try to figure out a way to let my son fail, to let him struggle. I don't want to, because I, again, told you, I have that personal context and struggle with it. But I know that he won't know who he is, and he will not grow to be the man he needs to be until he fumbles, until he falls. And the same sits true for you and me and everyone else. We've got to figure out who we're going to be in this world based on what happens when we are climbing our way back up from something. And sometimes it's small, and sometimes it's super major, and sometimes it's somewhere in between. Doesn't matter. Every struggle, every climb, we're going to learn. We're going to grow. And so I hope that doesn't terrify you. But if it does, it's okay. You can put that in the comments. And if it intrigues you, why? Why does it intrigue you? And if this resonates with you, why does it resonate with you? Because the other thing that we have to remember is, and I spoke about this earlier, is the fact that your struggle is not something that you need to keep in confidence. It is not something that you need to keep in silo. Absolutely not. Open that up. And it may not be comfortable. Maybe you're a person who's like, no, I don't talk about that. I hear you. I do. But imagine how many people could learn and could be inspired and could evolve because you shared your struggle. Wouldn't that be meaningful? Wouldn't that take your struggle and take it to like even the next level of like, wow, like someone could have created a whole new product, done a whole new business, primarily because they listened to someone else talk about XYZ. That's powerful stuff, y'all. Like, that's so meaningful. So we have to remember that this is not just happening to us and, oh gosh, I just want to close the door. No. Write about it, post about it, do audio about it, do videos about it, share. The more we're sharing, and it is vulnerability, I know it is, but we are living testimony for each other. And so the more that we can not only experience our life, go through it, right? Think through, strategize, do all the things we talked about today, but also hear the narratives, watch the narratives of others. Whoa, we're getting more context. We are getting more personalization, especially if this is being shared to us by our loved ones, by people that we look up to, by people who are revered in our society. Oh, next level accomplishment that can happen from this. Whew, a lot. Okay, so if you want to stay connected with me, as stated earlier, I always do try to share my contact information. This is me on LinkedIn. That's like the best place to reach me for those who, and I have other places too, but if you're on there, and if you're not on there, how are you not on LinkedIn? Please get on LinkedIn. It is like amazing. It's a really great professional networking platform. It is free for you to join. Please join and connect. Let's chat. Natasha M. Nurse, Esquire. Yes, I am a person who wears many different hats. I can even share one of my own. Some people may consider it a failure. I went to New York Law School, woohoo, New York reppin'. And the year I started was in the '08 crash. And so that was fun. Why? Because when I graduated in 2011, was I able to go and be that traditional attorney and get into trust and estates or family law that I wanted to? Nope. Some may consider that a failure. I consider that as the opportunity to become a non-traditional attorney. And it has served me well throughout my career in DEI, diversity, equity, inclusion. It has served me as an entrepreneur, as a blogger, as a coach, as a podcaster, as a speaker, workshop facilitator. It has served me as a woman to feel more confident, to know, because to get through law school, y'all, it is a machine, and it is a machine designed to break you. So when you get through, you have beat the matrix. It is amazing. I can go to the moon and back. Phenomenal. Yes, right? And it is not, something that I necessarily thought I would like the career I have today. It wasn't necessarily something I envisioned when I was in law school, but I'm so grateful for it. And I'm so grateful for the lessons learned and the connections made, and just the woman who started and the woman that came out of that experience, and the woman 11 years after that, like 12, I think maybe coming up now. Yeah, so it's been a while, but please find me, let's connect. Also, if you're like, nope, I'm not on LinkedIn, try again. That a couple of tears are shed, but that's okay. You can still email me, natasha@dressingroommate.com, and then visit the website, dressingroommate.com. You'll learn about my training. You'll learn about some of the workshops I like to do for organizations. If you're like, well, I want you to speak to this group, cool, like whatever, we can talk about it. Let's connect. But with that, I was going to get to questions and answers, which you still can participate in through the comments, right? How you're watching and listening to this. So please, just like, if you're like, well, what do you mean about this? And well, what was an opportunity where you had failure and you didn't learn from it, right? Like, let's talk through this. Let's let this knowledge seep in, right? Let's kind of have it percolate, and then try to apply it. And so part of the application process is processing. And you need to start to think about what is making sense. What did you learn that you agree with? What did you learn that you're like, I have more questions on? What did you disagree with? Let's talk about all of it. I think that there's value in that. And then I wanted to say thank you with one of my favorite actors because why not? And thank you for watching. Thank you for your time. Time is the most valuable asset you have in life. So whenever you give it to something like learning, I hold that in great honor. And I know that is a privilege, because we all have a lot to do in life. So whenever you spend time watching something, listening to something, like, I appreciate you over and over and over again. So thank you.